Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome once again to Change the Questions, the show where we take one single solitary question, put it under a microscope, and examine it thoroughly. My name is Paul Laporte. Joining me once again is my usual partner in crime, Mike Miner.
Mike Miner. Hey.
And this week's episode is going to be one going back to the Attitude Era, going back to one of the most well-known professional wrestlers of all time, The Rock. So we can't dispute the fact that he is certainly one of the most well-known wrestlers of all time. But the question I'm going to pose today is one that is certainly going to be, I guess we always say that every episode is going to be controversial or whatever, but I feel like I am going to get a ton of heat for even bringing this question up, and I have in the past. Was The Rock an all-time great wrestler?
So we're gonna put The Rock under a microscope, is what you're saying?
Yes.
Well, he is a specimen. So.
What is that? What study or what version of science is that?
Oh.
Is that geography?
Geometry.
Geometry. Yes.
What the
Geometry.
hell, man? Really?
Bachelor's degree. I knew it was geo something. I wasn't that far off. Give me a break. Okay. So, The Rock, extremely charismatic. Very, very, very well known. I'm going to let you go with your point first because I think this is going to be one of the episodes we disagree on. Although I don't think my opinion is quite as strong as it was when I first thought of this episode. But I'll go first if you want.
Well, you know what? Let me put it to you this way. I'll do it quick.
Okay.
The Rock, for the time that he was there, 96 to what? 2001, and then he kind of started going off, doing his own thing a little bit here and there. He kind of sputtered in between, and then around 2003, he didn't show up for a year. Then 2004 comes around, WrestleMania 20, I think it was, and then he was gone. I think part of that is because, they couldn't sign him to a new contract. They let his contract run out, or they let it expire, and they never got a hold of him, and he kind of got away for the better part of another decade. As far as the time that he was in, as far as that 4, 5, even 6 year period that he was around, all-time great, yeah, during that time period, for what he did during that amount of time, during that condensed period, yeah, I'd say he's an all-time great, just based on that. But as far as longevity goes, he wasn't really around that long in the grand scheme of things. John Cena's been around, 12, 13, 2002, 14 years.
Yeah.
2016, almost 14 years John Cena's been around. So, The Rock hasn't been around that long. But for what he did during that time period, yeah, he could be considered a great. But man, it was just a different time. You had the Hot Shot title reigns. Mick Foley held on to it 3 times, maybe less than 90 days during his 3 title reigns, I think it was. But it's just the way it was. A lot of those guys, you can look at them individually and say, were they an all-time great? Just based on, you can say they were there that amount of time, but how great were they for how long? The Rock has, 97, he started getting that whole Rock thing going, and then 98, he wins the championship, so he had a good 3-4 year period where he was at the top of the line. Not many guys get to do that. So, yeah, I mean, for what he's done for the business and continues to do once in a while, yeah, he brings a lot of exposure. I'd say, okay, yeah, you know what? It's some things, maybe not, but, for what he did in the short amount of time, yeah, I'd say he's an all-time great.
Okay.
Let me hear your side of it.
All right, so counterpoint. I think The Rock was extremely popular. He was a good wrestler. A good wrestler.
A lot of people are going to argue that, but,
Fair, and that's fair, and you can make that argument. I don't think he was anything beyond good.
I mean, he could, he could go further than he wanted to.
He could do well in a match where somebody was better than him.
There was times where, he could have varied his moveset. He could have done different
He could have,
moves.
but he didn't.
That's the thing. He changed his moveset. He changed and relied on...
He regressed his moveset.
He relied on what worked for him, I think.
Right.
And a lot of what he was doing in the beginning was, cross bodies off the top rope. He was doing... I swear I saw him do a head scissors. But, it's just...
but those were things that he did back then. But
does everybody need to do that?
No, and that's what I'm saying. Not being good at quote unquote professional wrestling as a body does not necessarily mean you need to be everybody needs to be Dean Malenko. That's okay, fine. I'm just saying he was a good professional wrestler, and he was a above average stand-up comedian. Okay?
Yeah.
As far as cutting promos, and this is where I get the most heat with people on.
I kind of see where you're going with this, but please, before I assume anything,
yes.
Let me hear
so, The Rock, everybody talks about how great of a promo The Rock was, and this, that, and the other, and...
Are you going to say 90% of it's the same?
I wasn't even going to specifically say that, but yeah, okay. But let's break down a Rock promo. First of all, let's break down what a good promo is or should be. A good promo, in my book, by my definition, and this is my definition alone, and you can definitely call me wrong on this. A good promo is something that makes people want to see you fight a guy. Think about every quote-unquote great promo The Rock has ever cut. Do any of them fit that category? Do you remember watching any Rock promo and going, oh, I want to see him fight that guy now?
Well, there's been ones at the beginning where, he was a heel. You wanted to see him get his ass handed to him.
Right.
But as far
right, and I do think that Rock was way, 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 way better as a heel than he was as a face. Because, like you said, that's when he cut those promos, it wasn't a thing of this guy's an asshole, I want to see him get hurt. But when he became a face, now it's just okay. Now pandering. The Rock is just
it's all pandering.
Now The Rock is just coming out. He's calling people gay, and and he's making he's making just like everybody look bad, And it was just he's coming out. He's calling everybody gay. He's just mentioning about how he wants to fuck Lillian Garcia all the time. Like it's just weird shit.
I thought he wanted to fuck a pie.
Like everybody. Like it's just like I said. It just to me. The Rock is kind of like that ultimate, like, bro wrestler sort of thing. It's like...
The jock. He's a jock.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know... this is also... I was never a big fan of The Rock. Just in general, when I was, like, younger and a fan, I wasn't really into him. I was into, like, a lot of other guys more than I was him and everything. And I even liked Stone Cold way more, even though I wasn't even a big Stone Cold fan. But I think Stone Cold definitely... gave you that sense of like, I want to see him kick somebody's ass. I want to see him fight because he is riled up. He is aggressive. But The Rock would just kind of come out and make fun of people. And I think another thing that you need a good promo to be is to kind of build up the person you're feuding with. Like, yes, I'm making fun of you, but I'm a jerk for doing so. Or if I'm a babyface, I'm touting you up. So it looks even more impressive when I beat you.
I think what a lot of happened with The Rock was, when he was a face, it was more along the lines, he's doing all this shit talking, he's going off on these guys, and the audience would want to see him back it up, and he backed it up. As far as the heel goes, he'd do the same thing, but he would get his ass handed to him. That's it was very simple in that regard. One of my favorite series of matches was Mick Foley and The Rock. Crazy matches, ridiculous matches. The 13 chair shots, that's too brutal for me. I could see a lot of things, but seeing a guy get his head scrambled like that is very hard to
there's also
watch.
Questions about whether or not Rock took liberties with that, too. And did more than he was supposed to, and that's a completely different...
Mick was upset about that, and I don't blame him.
Well, yeah, because Rock tried to kill him, If a guy tried to murder me with a steel chair, I'd be upset about it, too.
I think one of the most underrated matches they had was the empty arena match. You don't hear or see anything about that, but, that's neither here nor there. They had a bunch of matches, and I thought they were great.
And that's kind of another thing I wanted to bring up, is that Rock, he has had great matches. You can't dispute that.
The guy could hold the company up while the other guys were gone. I mean, if they weren't around, they didn't even need to be gone.
But think about it. Think about it, though. Think about the feuds Rock had outside of Stone Cold, outside of Mick Foley.
Triple H.
Outside.
Undertaker.
Okay. So outside of like 4 or 5 guys.
I mean, he even had Ken Shamrock for quite a while.
I know, but does anybody really care about the Ken Shamrock feud?
But Ken Shamrock kind of petered out and he
that's
was
fair.
gone. And that's before The Rock really became...
It's a question of...
It's within the year before The Rock really blew up,
Yeah. It's a question of whether or not The Rock could bring anybody up, or if he was just kind of hanging with people like holding his own with people at the top of the card, which is a skill in its own. It's not easy to hang with those guys, but to bring anybody up, I just don't. I don't know.
As far as like what, putting them over or giving them
like
a
think of
performance,
like
to,
any big name that he kind of gave gave credibility or credence to. I mean, you can argue that the Undertaker kind of was responsible for Mankind.
Well,
something like that. And I mean, you could kind of probably say the same thing about Stone Cold, but
how do you feel about Brock Lesnar in 2002? The Rock wasn't really around, but The Rock was still a huge name. And,
that's fair.
And
I think Undertaker did more for Brock's career personally, but I mean,
The Rock was the champion at the time. He was the guy that's at the top of the company. He's the guy that they put all their money on, and then they said, okay, we want to strap a rocket to Brock Lesnar, and The Rock went down clean.
Yeah.
I mean, there could be an argument made for that.
No, you're absolutely right.
So,
and like I said, this is one of those ones that it's totally up in the air. And when I mentioned this to somebody I knew, and I brought up the whole did you ever want to see like a Rock? Did any of the Rock's promos ever want to make you see him fight anybody? The point I brought up earlier, and he just looked at me. He's like, it doesn't matter. People paid to see him.
He tried to do a Rock promo. I think that's
that is funny, but no. He says it makes no difference. People paid money. He put asses in seats.
Yeah.
That makes him great. And I honestly really can't dispute that. It's just a fact of, when I think of the great promos in professional wrestling, everybody talks about how Do you
remember the Rock concerts at least? How ridiculous those were?
Oh yeah,
those
like I said, there were lots of silly and
funny
funny things. But when you talk about people who are great promos and how The Rock is one of the greatest promos of all time, in my head, as far as what makes a promo good and interesting for me, I can name half a dozen people currently around on the existing WWE roster who I feel are as good or better than him on the mic.
But it wouldn't hurt to have The Rock, though,
You're right. You're right.
I think it's great, and he's just different enough. I'm not saying the stuff that you were talking about earlier was great. It really wasn't, because it was so cookie cutter. I guess he could do a lot better than that. Mm-hmm. I guess it's just a lot of, like I said, it's similar to like what he did in the ring. He just relied on what he did to get pops, and it worked. Mm-hmm. That's what works, and that's what got him over the crowd. So why change a good thing, I guess?
No, you're right.
And I'm not going to say it was great, but, it worked for him, it worked for the audience, and it was a product of its time.
Yeah.
And on top of it, I was going to mention this. Do you remember 2003 with Hollywood Rock? Just different enough to be that smarmy, arrogant douchebag that goes back, trashes a town. That was great stuff, I thought. The Hollywood Rock stuff was great, and it lasted...
No, like I said,
a very short amount of time.
The Rock is always better when he's a heel, because he's always better when he's a guy. It's always better when the heel is insulting people.
And he tweaked it when he came back from Hollywood, and it was great.
Anybody who does
just enough,
who does that style of insulting your opponent, Rock, Chris Jericho, all those guys are always better as heels than they are as babyfaces, because that's heel behavior, that's heel tactics, and it's just like I said, I just don't know. If The Rock would have stood on his own, like if he were how would The Rock have done if he were to show up today? And we'd never heard about him before. He would have. I mean, obviously it's a different culture. You don't get to kind of control your own as much. But I just feel like Hulk Hogan, for all the shit that Hulk Hogan gets, and deservedly so. I am by zero means a Hulk Hogan fan, but Hulk Hogan made you pay United States American dollars to see him fight King Kong fucking Bundy and people like that, people that nobody cared about. He made you pay to see him fight those guys because of the ridiculous crap he did. And every criticism you give The Rock, you can kind of give to Hulk Hogan. Limited moveset, repetitive promos, sometimes nonsense promos, but he took people that you didn't care about otherwise, and he made you pay money and want to see them. And I just don't know if you can say the same for The Rock.
I can say the same thing for The Rock.
Okay.
I think he can make it work. He's very charismatic. He's got his spots in the ring. Hulk Hogan. I mean, Hogan had what? The big boot,
right? Like I said, you can apply the same criticisms to Hogan, if not more so.
The Axe Bomber,
yeah.
in Japan,
yeah.
And I mean, The Rock had his spots. He had the Rock Bottom, the Spine Buster, the DDT, the Rock Bottom,
Yeah.
the elbow. I might be.
You said rock bottom twice.
Did I say rock bottom? That's what I thought. I thought
Exactly.
I said it twice.
And there's your criticism about
There
The
you
Rock.
go.
You got to 4 moves and you had to start repeating yourself.
The sharpshooter.
Yeah.
Is it really a sharpshooter or crap shooter? Is that what they call it? People call it?
No, it's a sharpshooter.
It's
All right. So that's going to wrap it up for us. We want to hear
Ooh, punches. Punches. He did a lot of
Yes,
punches.
he did throw a lot of. He spit in his hand and then he punched the guy. Woo! All right, that's going to wrap it up for us.
Shaky leg stomp. Okay, all right. Yeah,
we want to know what you guys
Bring it on.
think. Was The Rock an all-time great? Leave us your feedback. Changingthequestions@gmail.com. You can also check us out at Twitter at Changing the Qs, which is at Changing the QS. Also, be sure to check us out on YouTube. You can get all of our archives for all of our past shows, as well as some YouTube-exclusive content over there. If you're listening on YouTube, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe on this video and all the other ones you listen to. Also, if you're listening on iTunes, be sure to leave us a nice 5-star review, say some nice things about us. So that's going to wrap it up. Hope you enjoyed this episode, Change the Questions, and we will see you soon.
Later.
Bye.
Bye.